I'd attended countless corporate events throughout my career, but that night at the CEO's party felt different. The air buzzed with a kind of expensive arrogance, champagne glasses clinking, laughter that sounded rehearsed, people performing success beneath crystal chandeliers. I'd only been promoted 6 months earlier, and already I was learning that achievement came with a cost, visibility. My wife, Claire, had insisted on coming. "It's your first big event as director, Daniel," she'd said. "You can't go without your better half." She looked breathtaking that night, an emerald dress that shimmered with every movement, drawing the kind of attention that both admired and evaluated her. The party was hosted at the private mansion of our CEO, Martin Grayson, a man whose name carried weight. Ruthless in business, magnetic in charm, the type who could sell water to a drowning man. Everyone wanted to be in his favor, and tonight, this was his stage. Claire and I had just stepped into the grand hall when I spotted Richard Cole, the founder of Cole Industries and our biggest client. A man whose handshake could determine the fate of companies. I'd been chasing a multi-million-dollar deal with him for months. He stood near the marble staircase, whiskey in hand, his trademark smirk perfectly in place. When his eyes found me, he lifted his glass and grinned. "Daniel, there you are." I approached with a professional smile, Claire by my side, poised as always. But Richard's gaze wasn't on me. It lingered on her. He looked at her like a man admiring art he could never own. "This must be your wife," he said, voice smooth but carrying an edge. "Yes," I replied lightly. "Richard, this is Claire." He took her hand, his smile stretching too far. "You didn't mention your wife was this captivating," he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. If I'd known, the deal would have been signed weeks ago. The laughter around us was shallow, polite, uneasy. Claire's smile faded, and my throat tightened. I expected him to drop it, to change the topic. But Richard, with that careless arrogance, turned to the gathering crowd and said, "Gentlemen, if beauty were currency, would this man even need a salary?" The room fell silent. Then came that awkward, nervous laughter people use to escape tension. Claire's eyes met mine, filled with shock and humiliation. I tried to defuse it. "That's enough, Richard," I said, forcing a smile. "Claire's not part of the business." He chuckled. "Oh, but Daniel, isn't she? Every great man has a muse. Some just make better impressions than others." Martin, our CEO, had drifted closer now, wearing that diplomatic grin that said he'd seen worse but wouldn't step in. "Let's keep it civil, Richard," he said mildly. "We're here to celebrate partnerships, not ruin them." Richard raised his glass again. "To partnerships, then." The crowd relaxed, the music swelled back to life, and laughter returned like nothing had happened. But inside me, something fractured. My grip on the glass tightened until it trembled. Claire stood beside me, stiff, silent, eyes fixed on the floor. When she finally looked up, her face was unreadable. "Let's go," she whispered. She whispered it softly, and part of me wanted to leave right then, to protect her, to walk out and never look back. But I also knew what that would mean professionally. Walking away from Cole meant walking away from the deal that could define my future at the company. For the rest of the evening, I moved through the crowd on autopilot, smiling, shaking hands, pretending the night wasn't already ruined. Every laugh felt hollow. Every compliment tasted false. Beneath my calm exterior, something dark was growing. By the time we reached the car, Claire hadn't said a word. The silence wasn't cold. It was charged, filled with everything we couldn't say in front of others. As we drove, the headlights slicing through the dark, I finally spoke. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have stopped him sooner." She turned toward the window. "You should have," she replied quietly. The truth in her words stung deeper than any insult could. That night, as I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, I understood something new. Success wasn't just about closing deals or impressing powerful people. It was about what you refused to lose along the way. And I wasn't sure I still had my dignity. Monday came heavy and quiet. The office buzzed with whispers that traveled faster than emails. By mid-morning, everyone seemed to know about the scene at the CEO's party. No one said it outright, but I could feel it in their eyes, a mix of pity and curiosity reserved for those who've been publicly humiliated. When I entered the boardroom, Martin Grayson looked at me with an unreadable expression. "Daniel," he said, motioning to the chair beside him. "Richard called this morning. He's ready to finalize the deal." My stomach twisted. Apparently, he feels bad about what happened Friday. Wants to meet privately to smooth things over. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to decline, but this contract was the biggest of my career. Refusing could look emotional, unprofessional. And in business, emotion is blood in the water. "I'll take the meeting," I said quietly. That night, Claire was in the kitchen, silent, cutting vegetables with precise, controlled movements. I leaned on the counter. "Richard called," I said. Her hands froze mid-cut. "He did. Wants to meet. Close the deal." She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Of course he does." "Claire, no," she interrupted, turning to face me. "You know what that man did, what he said, and you're still willing to sit across from him for a contract." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried disappointment, heavy and raw. "It's not that simple," I said quietly. "If I walk away now, I'll lose everything I've worked for." She shook her head. "Then maybe it's not worth keeping." That night, she slept in the guest room. The silence between us was deafening. 2 days later, I met Richard at a private lounge downtown. He was already there, relaxed in a leather chair, whiskey in hand, as if he owned the world. "Daniel," he greeted with a grin. "Glad you came. No hard feelings, I hope. Just a little fun, right?" I sat across from him, my jaw tight. "You humiliated my wife in front of half the company." He waved a dismissive hand. "You're too serious, my friend. The world's full of sensitive people these days." The same smug tone, the same arrogance, and something inside me broke. Not loud, but clean, like glass cracking under pressure. "I think we're done here," I said, standing. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "The deal," I said evenly. "Take it somewhere else. I won't work with you." For a moment, he just stared. Then that smirk returned. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but at least it's mine." And I walked out. No handshake. No contract. No regret. When I got home, Claire was reading in the living room. She looked up, cautious, unsure which version of me had returned, the silent one or the man who'd finally found his voice. "I turned down the deal," I said. Her eyes widened. "You did?" I nodded. "I couldn't look at him without hearing what he said to you. I thought I was protecting my career that night, but really, I was protecting my pride." She was quiet for a long time, then stood and came closer. "You should have stopped him that night," she said softly. "But you did now." We stood in silence, the kind that heals instead of divides. The fallout came fast. Martin wasn't pleased, but he didn't fire me. Maybe he respected the decision, or maybe he just didn't want the PR mess. Either way, I stayed. The promotion pipeline quietly vanished, like a door closing in the dark. But something else opened. I began getting calls from smaller firms, people who valued integrity over prestige. Word had spread that I'd walked away from a multi-million-dollar deal on principle. In business, that kind of story travels faster than scandal. Months later, Claire and I attended a different kind of gathering, smaller, warmer, filled with genuine laughter. She was talking to an older couple when she caught my eye and smiled, truly smiled. And in that moment, I understood. Dignity doesn't arrive with applause or trophies. It shows itself quietly, in the eyes of the person who still respects you. I'd spent years chasing success, believing it was measured by wealth and status. But I learned it was built on something far simpler, the courage to draw a line, even when it costs you everything. Sometimes, that's where real success begins.